The prospect of aging often brings with it a shadow of anxiety concerning the mind's clarity and the brain's resilience. Many individuals approach their later years fearing that memory loss is an inevitable consequence of time, a fixed destiny that cannot be altered. This fatalistic view overlooks the profound neuroplasticity that remains available throughout life and the critical role that daily choices play in shaping cognitive destiny. A common enemy in this struggle is the pervasive nutritional confusion that surrounds seniors, particularly the misconception that all natural foods are inherently beneficial in unlimited quantities. This belief often leads to the mindless consumption of high-sugar options that silently erode metabolic health and, by extension, cognitive function. By shifting attention to the biological feedback loops between the gut and the brain, a clear path emerges toward preserving mental acuity. The journey involves distinguishing between fuel that inflames the system and nutrients that actively repair and protect neural pathways. Through a structured path of awareness, one can identify specific dietary adjustments that lower systemic inflammation and support memory retention. This exploration offers a quantifiable promise. Understanding the precise impact of specific fruits on blood glucose and insulin regulation allows for a strategic reclamation of brain health. The perspective aligns with the principles of mindfulness, where the act of eating becomes a deliberate practice of self-care and attention rather than a passive habit. The hidden impact of glycemic spikes on the aging mind. The aging body undergoes significant shifts in how it processes glucose, and these metabolic changes have direct implications for brain health. One of the primary mechanisms to consider is the relationship between insulin resistance and cognitive decline, often referred to by researchers as type 3 diabetes. When a person over the age of 60 consumes fruits with an exceptionally high glycemic index, the resulting rapid spike in blood sugar forces the pancreas to flood the system with insulin. Over time, cells become desensitized to this hormone, leaving excess glucose in the bloodstream, where it can cause oxidative stress and damage to blood vessels, including the delicate capillaries that nourish the brain. Dried fruits, particularly those with added sugar or those that are densely concentrated like dates and raisins, often sit at the center of this glycemic challenge. While they contain fiber, the removal of water concentrates the sugars to levels that can shock a metabolic system that is slowed down with age. A person might consume a handful of dried cranberries or mango slices thinking they are making a healthy choice, only to trigger an inflammatory cascade that fogs the mind. This physiological stress response distracts the brain from its maintenance tasks, such as clearing out amyloid plaques, focusing instead on managing the immediate energy crisis. The mindfulness perspective invites an observation of how the body feels immediately after consuming these concentrated sources of sugar. Instead of eating blindly, the individual is encouraged to notice if there is a sudden burst of energy followed by a crash, a phenomenon often accompanied by mental lethargy or difficulty concentrating. Canned fruits packed in heavy syrup represent another significant offender in this category, stripping the fruit of its natural benefits and bathing it in a liquid that is essentially pure fructose and glucose. The syrup acts as a delivery vehicle for inflammation, bypassing the body's natural satiety signals and encouraging overconsumption. Another fruit that requires careful navigation is the grape, specifically when consumed in large quantities without the presence of protein or healthy fats to slow absorption. Grapes are easily consumed by the bowlful, leading to a massive sugar load that can spike insulin levels similarly to candy. For the aging brain, specifically one trying to maintain neuroplasticity, chronic insulin spikes act as a dampener on the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein essential for the growth of new neurons. The mechanism here is clear. High sugar intake correlates with a shrinking hippocampus, the memory center of the brain. Fruit juices, even those labeled as 100% natural, remove the protective fiber matrix that dictates how the body metabolizes sugar. Drinking a glass of orange or apple juice delivers a hit of fructose to the liver that is immediate and taxing, promoting fat accumulation and systemic inflammation. This visceral fat is metabolically active and releases cytokines, chemicals that can cross the blood-brain barrier and cause neuroinflammation. The individual who relies on juice for vitamins is often unknowingly sabotaging their cognitive clarity by spiking their blood sugar repeatedly throughout the day. Very ripe bananas, while easier to digest, have converted almost all their resistant starch into simple sugars. For a younger person with a high metabolic rate, this might be a useful energy source, but for a senior, it represents a glycemic load that can contribute to brain fog. The brown spots on a banana indicate that the starch is broken down, and consuming it in isolation can lead to the same insulin resistance cycle mentioned earlier. Awareness is key here. It is not about banning foods, but understanding their state and their effect on the specific biology of an older adult. A practical scenario illustrates this dynamic clearly. An individual sits down for a mid-morning snack, choosing a bowl of dried fruits and a glass of juice, believing they're fueling their body with vitamins. Within an hour, they experience a slump in energy and a slight inability to recall a name or a word, dismissing it as just a senior moment. In reality, this is a biological response to the sugar crash, a temporary impairment of cognitive function driven by dietary choices. By bringing mindful attention to this cause and effect relationship, the person can begin to make different choices that sustain energy rather than deplete it. Counterexamples exist, of course, as some individuals maintain high insulin sensitivity well into their 80s due to genetics or rigorous exercise regimes. For these people, the occasional high glycemic fruit may not trigger the same inflammatory response or cognitive dip. However, for the majority of the population over 60, the metabolic buffer is thinner and the margin for error is smaller. Recognizing this limitation is not about restriction, but about respecting the body's changing needs and responding with compassion rather than indulgence. The approach of mindful eating suggests a pause before consumption to assess hunger and the actual nature of the food being presented. It involves looking at the dried apricot or the glass of juice and recognizing it not just as flavor, but as a biochemical input that will influence the mind's performance for the next several hours. This pause creates a space between impulse and action, allowing wisdom to intervene. It shifts the dynamic from eating for comfort or habit to eating for the preservation of the self. Ultimately, the reduction of these high-sugar fruits creates a physiological environment where the brain can thrive. Lowering the glycemic load reduces background inflammation, allowing the brain's immune cells, the microglia, to focus on repair rather than defense. This shift is subtle but cumulative, leading to days characterized by greater mental sharpness and emotional stability. The removal of the memory weakeners clears the stage for the introduction of neuroprotective elements. What am I consuming that might be clouding my clarity today? Inflammatory pathways and the illusion of healthy choices. Inflammation is often described as the silent killer. But in the context of the brain, it is the silent fog that obscures memory and cognition. The consumption of fruits that have been heavily processed or that are chemically treated can introduce toxins that the aging body struggles to eliminate. This struggle diverts energy away from cognitive processes as the body prioritizes detoxification over higher-level thinking. The illusion of health marketing often disguises these inflammatory agents as beneficial snacks, confusing the consumer who is trying to make responsible choices. One specific category to consider is fruits heavily treated with pesticides, such as non-organic strawberries or apples, often found on the dirty dozen list. For a person over 60, the blood-brain barrier may be more permeable than it was in youth, allowing these chemical residues to enter the neural environment more easily. These toxins can act as endocrine disruptors and neurotoxins, contributing to a low-grade chronic inflammation that has been linked to conditions like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. The mindful approach involves a deep consideration of the source of one's food, recognizing that the apple is not just an apple, but a carrier of its cultivation history. Processed fruit snacks, marketed as made with real fruit, frequently contain high-fructose corn syrup, dyes, and stabilizers. These additives are foreign to the body's evolutionary biology and can trigger an immune response in the gut. Since the gut and the brain are connected via the vagus nerve, distress in the digestive tract translates almost instantly to distress in the brain. A senior consuming these convenient snacks may experience anxiety, irritability, or confusion, unaware that the source is the inflammation radiating from their digestive system. Another subtle source of inflammation can be the overconsumption of fruits that belong to the nightshade family for those who are sensitive, though this is less about specific fruits and more about individual biological variability. However, a more universal issue is the consumption of fruit cocktails preserved in sugary liquids with added preservatives. The preservatives used to maintain color and texture often contain sulfites or other compounds that can trigger headaches and brain fog in sensitive older adults. The body treats these additives as mild threats, keeping the immune system in a state of hypervigilance that is exhausting for the brain. The liver plays a crucial role in managing these inflammatory loads, and as it becomes overburdened by fructose and toxins, its ability to clear the blood of other waste products diminishes. When the liver is sluggish, toxins that should be excreted remain in circulation, eventually reaching the brain and causing what is known as hepatic encephalopathy in severe cases, but manifesting as mild cognitive impairment in subclinical scenarios. High fructose fruits, when consumed without fiber, accelerate this liver burden, fatty liver, directly impacting the organ responsible for keeping the blood clean for the brain. Integration of the mindfulness perspective requires a non-judgmental awareness of these biological realities. It is not about fearing food, but about understanding the complex interplay between industrial agriculture, food processing, and human biology. The individual learns to read labels not with obsession, but with a desire to understand what is entering the temple of the body. This awareness leads to a natural gravitation away from foods that cause internal dissonance and toward those that foster harmony. Consider a person standing in a grocery aisle, holding a package of fruit chews that claims to be a healthy snack. A moment of mindfulness allows them to turn the package over and read the ingredients, noticing the sugars and dyes listed before the actual fruit puree. In that moment of seeing, the illusion breaks, and they place the package back on the shelf, choosing instead a piece of whole fruit. This simple act of refusal is a powerful affirmation of cognitive worth, a decision to protect the brain from unnecessary chemical assault. There are instances where processed fruits are the only option due to economic or geographic constraints. In such cases, the limitation must be acknowledged without self-condemnation. The strategy then shifts to mitigation, perhaps washing the fruit thoroughly or pairing the sugary canned fruit with a protein source to dampen the glycemic impact. The body is resilient and can handle occasional insults, provided the baseline remains clean and supportive. The psychological impact of breaking free from these healthy traps is significant. It empowers the individual, moving them from a passive victim of marketing to an active guardian of their own health. This empowerment reduces stress, which in itself is a powerful anti-inflammatory. When one stops fighting their own biology with incompatible foods, a sense of ease permeates the system. Ultimately, avoiding these inflammatory triggers is about preserving the structural integrity of the brain. It safeguards the white matter tracts that facilitate communication between different brain regions. By keeping the inflammatory load low, the aging brain retains its speed of processing and its ability to access memories stored deep within the neural network. This clearing of the path allows the protective fruits to do their work effectively. How does my body signal when I have eaten something that does not serve me? Neuroprotective compounds and the art of savoring, turning toward the fruits that actively protect the brain, opens a chapter of culinary delight and sensory appreciation. The shift is from avoidance to nourishment, focusing on foods rich in antioxidants, flavonoids, and vitamins that have been scientifically proven to support cognitive longevity. The first, and perhaps most potent among these, are blueberries. These small berries are packed with anthocyanins, compounds that give them their deep color and have the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier to reduce oxidative stress and inflammation directly at the neural level. Studies suggest that regular consumption of blueberries can improve memory and delay cognitive aging by up to 2 years. The mechanism involves the enhancement of signaling between neurons and the facilitation of glucose metabolism in the brain. For the aging individual, the blueberry acts as a neuroshield, patrolling the brain for free radicals and neutralizing them before they can damage cell membranes. This is not merely food. It is functional medicine that tastes of summer and sweetness. Avocados, technically a fruit, offer a different but equally vital form of protection through their high content of monounsaturated fats. The brain is largely composed of fat, and it requires healthy lipids to maintain the insulation of nerve fibers, known as myelin. Without adequate healthy fats, the speed of neural transmission slows down, leading to slower thinking and reaction times. Avocados also support healthy blood flow, which is critical for a hypertension-prone demographic, ensuring that the brain receives a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients. Pomegranates enter the list as a powerhouse of polyphenol. The juice and seeds of this fruit possess potent anti-inflammatory properties that protect the brain from the accumulation of plaques associated with neurodegenerative diseases. The act of eating a pomegranate, with the requirement to extract the seeds carefully, can itself be a mindful practice, slowing down the pace of eating and engaging the senses. The biochemical impact includes the preservation of nitric oxide, a molecule that keeps blood vessels open and flexible, crucial for preventing vascular dementia. Citrus fruits, specifically oranges and grapefruits, provide a robust dose of vitamin C, a crucial antioxidant that prevents brain cell damage. High levels of vitamin C in the blood have been associated with superior mental performance in tasks involving focus, memory, and attention. Beyond the vitamin content, the flavonoids in citrus fruits, such as hesperidin, have been shown to improve blood flow to the brain and protect against neurotoxicity. The scent of citrus alone is often enough to stimulate alertness, engaging the olfactory pathways that link directly to the brain's emotional centers. The fifth guardian of the brain is the plum, particularly in its dried form as the prune, but consumed in moderation and without added sugars. Prunes are exceptionally high in antioxidants that neutralize the superoxide anion radical, a particularly destructive molecule in the body. They also contain boron, a mineral that is essential for bone health, but also plays a role in coordination and mental alertness. The deep, rich flavor of a plum offers a complex sensory experience that satisfies the palate without spiking blood sugar to dangerous levels if portion control is observed. Applying the lens of mindfulness to these protective foods transforms the meal into a meditation. It involves noticing the texture of the avocado, the burst of tartness in the blueberry, the vibrant color of the orange. This sensory immersion enhances digestion and absorption, as the parasympathetic nervous system is activated by the state of calm awareness. The individual eats with gratitude, recognizing that these fruits are allies in the quest for longevity. A counterpoint to consider is that no single fruit is a magic bullet. Eating blueberries while maintaining a high-stress, sedentary lifestyle will not prevent cognitive decline on its own. These foods function best as part of a holistic ecosystem of health that includes movement, sleep, and social connection. They are tools, not cures, and their efficacy is maximized when the rest of the biological terrain is well tended. Incorporating these fruits in a daily life can be simple and joyful. A breakfast bowl of oatmeal topped with blueberries and walnuts, a side of avocado with lunch, or a pomegranate shared with a friend becomes a ritual of health. These moments of feeding the body become moments of feeding the mind, reinforcing the intention to live with clarity and purpose. The narrative changes from "I am getting old" to "I am nurturing my wisdom." The cumulative effect of these neuroprotective choices is a brain that remains plastic, resilient, and capable of learning new things well into the 7th, 8th, and 9th decades. The reduction in oxidative stress allows the brain to maintain its volume and connectivity. This biological resilience provides the foundation for emotional resilience, allowing the senior to navigate the challenges of aging with grace and equanimity. When do I feel most nourished and cared for by my own choices? Cultivating awareness for sustained cognitive vitality, the synthesis of this knowledge lies not in the rigid adherence to a list of good and bad foods, but in the cultivation of a relationship with one's own biology. The journey through the landscape of nutrition for the aging brain is ultimately a journey of self-awareness. It requires the individual to listen to the quiet signals of the body, to distinguish between the cravings of the mind and the needs of the cells. This attunement is the essence of mindfulness as applied to longevity. The dichotomy of the 5 fruits that weaken and the 5 that protect serves as a framework for understanding the broader principles of inflammation versus protection and depletion versus nourishment. By reducing the intake of high glycemic, processed, and inflammatory fruits, the individual removes the obstacles to clear thinking. Simultaneously, by introducing antioxidant-rich, fatty, and vitamin-dense options, they provide the raw materials necessary for neural repair and maintenance. This approach offers a resolution to the fear of cognitive decline by replacing helplessness with agency. The future need not be a passive descent into fog. It can be an active cultivation of clarity. The promise of the introduction is fulfilled in the realization that memory and brain health are, to a significant degree, responsive to the inputs provided daily. Every meal becomes an opportunity to vote for the health of the brain, to choose vitality over decay. The practice of mindful eating extends beyond the plate. It influences how one shops, how one cooks, and how one shares food with others. It brings a quality of presence to the act of living, slowing down the rush of time and allowing the individual to inhabit their life more fully. In this state of presence, stress levels drop, cortisol decreases, and the brain is further protected from the ravages of chronic tension. It is important to remember that perfection is not the goal. There will be days of celebration, of cake, of sweet treats, and this is part of the human experience. The resilient brain, supported by a baseline of healthy habits, can handle these deviations. The key is the return to the center, the gentle guiding of oneself back to the foods that heal and sustain. This flexibility prevents the diet from becoming a source of stress in itself. As the years advance, the body requires more care, more attention, and more kindness. The choices made in the kitchen are an expression of this kindness. They are a declaration that the mind is valuable, that the memories held within are precious, and that the capacity to engage with the world is worth preserving. The protection offered by the recommended fruits is not just chemical. It is symbolic of a commitment to life. In the end, the wisdom of the aging mind is supported by the wisdom of the earth. The blueberry, the avocado, the pomegranate. These are gifts that, when received with awareness, become part of the structure of the self. The fear of the common enemy, memory loss, recedes as the individual takes command of their biological destiny, one bite at a time. The path is clear, the tools are available, and the potential for a vibrant, lucid later life is within reach. What step can I take today to honor the clarity of my mind?